Welcome back, part 2 of After Betraying His Luna. All night, the Alpha King came home to a rejection he never expected. The bond snapped, his voice vanished again, his world crumbled. And she walked away, pregnant, heartbroken, but finally free. Years later, a brave little boy with his father's storm-gray eyes steps forward in front of the entire kingdom and says, "I am your son." Now the fallen king is on his knees begging for forgiveness he may never deserve. While an ancient darkness wakes, hungry for the air it's waited generations to destroy. Here's what's going to keep you glued. Can a man who lost everything truly earn back the family he shattered? Will Seraphina ever let him close again? Or has she risen too high for a broken king to reach? And when the final battle comes, who will pay the ultimate price for redemption?
Before we continue, kindly tell us where you are watching from, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button, because every day we have an amazing story that will make your day.
Chapter 1: Echoes in the Snow. The snow kept falling, thick and relentless, as if the goddess herself sought to bury Blackthorn Palace in silence. Lysander stood alone in the throne room long after the divine light faded. The moon pendant lay on the stone before him, catching the fire's dying glow. His knees ached from hours of kneeling, but the physical pain was nothing compared to the hollow void where his voice and her bond had once lived. At once, he reached for the pendant, closing his fist around it until the edges bit into his palm. Blood welled, dark against silver. "Begin!" One word from the goddess, a command, a lifeline. He rose slowly, every movement deliberate. The king who had once commanded with a glance now carried the weight of true humility. No voice, no mate, no illusions. But purpose burned in his chest, small and fierce. He would earn it all back or die trying. Far north in the hidden valley of Silvermere Keep, Seraphina stepped into her new life with the dawn. The keep was smaller than Blackthorn. Ancient stone wrapped in evergreens, perched above a frozen lake that reflected the sky like a mirror. The pack here was old, proud, and fiercely independent. They had welcomed her not as a broken Luna, but as the woman who severed a toxic bond and walked away with her head high. She stood on the balcony of her new chambers, breath clouding in the frigid air. One hand rested instinctively on the gentle curve of her belly, still flat enough to hide beneath cloaks, but she felt the life there. A secret quickening. Their child. His child. She had discovered it days before the rejection, in the quiet horror of realizing she carried the air of a man who no longer deserved her. She had kept it hidden to protect the pup from the poison of his father's choices. And now? Now she would raise this child in a place of strength, not shame. A soft knock pulled her from her thoughts. "Enter," she called. The door opened to reveal Era, the Silvermere healer, a silver-haired woman with kind eyes and hands that had delivered generations. She carried a tray of steaming herbs. "How are you feeling, my lady?" Era asked, setting the tray down. Seraphina managed a small smile. Stronger every day. Era's gaze dropped to her midsection, understanding without words. "The pup is well?" "Yes." Seraphina's hand tightened protectively. "Growing." Era nodded. "The pack will protect you both. Word has already spread of what you did. They call you the Moon Blessed, the Luna who chose herself." Seraphina turned back to the view, snow-capped peaks stretching endless. "I didn't do it for glory. I know," Era said softly. "But glory follows courage anyway." Back in Blackthorn, the first test came sooner than expected. A raven arrived at dusk, black wings dusted white, bearing news from the western border. Rogue packs, emboldened by rumors of the king's renewed silence, had raided 3 villages. Livestock gone, homes burned, wolves dead. The council demanded action. Lysander stood before them in the war room, slate in hand. He wrote quickly, "I will lead the response myself." Gasps rippled through the room. "Your Majesty," the elder advisor stammered. "Without your voice." Lysander's eyes silenced him. He wrote again, "My actions will speak." He left at midnight with a small elite force, wolves who had fought beside him before the curse broke. They rode hard through the storm, cloaks whipping like banners. In the ruins of the western village, they found survivors huddled in a barn. A young mother clutched her pup, eyes wide with terror. Lysander knelt before her, removing his glove to show empty hands. No threat. He gestured to his throat, then pointed to the child. The mother understood. She let the healers tend her pup. As the warriors rebuilt what they could, Lysander tracked the rogues alone into the forest. Snow muffled his steps. He moved like shadow, scenting blood and fear. He found them at dawn, 5 rogues feasting on stolen livestock around a fire. They laughed when they saw him. "The Silent King," one sneered. "Come to bark orders?" Lysander didn't hesitate. He fought like a demon unleashed, claws raking, teeth tearing, body a blur of lethal precision. One by one they fell. The last rogue begged, whimpering about mercy. Lysander spared him, bound him, dragged him back to the village as proof. When he returned, covered in blood that wasn't his, the survivors fell to their knees, not in fear but gratitude. Word spread quickly. The king may be silent, but he was still deadly, still theirs. In Silvermere, Seraphina felt it, a faint tug in her chest like an echo of the bond that no longer existed. She pressed a hand to her heart, frowning. Era noticed. "The pup?" "No," Seraphina murmured, "something else." That night she dreamed of thunder, of a voice she hadn't heard in months roaring her name across a battlefield. She woke gasping, tears on her cheeks. Across the miles, Lysander stood on the palace battlements, snow in his hair, staring north. He clutched the pendant and mouthed one word into the wind. "Begin." Chapter 2, Whispers of an Heir. Lysander stared north from the battlements until the wind numbed his skin and the snow soaked through his cloak. "Begin." The word looped in his mind like a heartbeat. He had taken the first step, riding into the storm, spilling rogue blood, proving to his people that silence did not mean weakness. But it felt hollow. Every swing of his sword, every grateful bow from the villagers echoed back the same truth. None of it brought her back. He turned and descended the stone stairs, boots crunching on fresh ice. The palace felt cavernous without her scent in the halls. Servants bowed low as he passed, eyes flickering with questions they dared not voice. In the war room, the council waited. They rose when he entered, tension thick as smoke. The elder advisor cleared his throat. "Your Majesty, the western villages are secure for now. But word spreads quickly. Another challenger has arrived from the Iron Fang clan. He demands trial by combat at the next full moon." Lysander's jaw tightened. He picked up the slate, wrote with sharp strokes, "Let him come." A younger advisor shifted. "There is another matter. A spy returned from the north, Silvermere Keep." Lysander froze, chalk hovering. The advisor hesitated. "The Luna. She lives well. The pack reveres her. But there are whispers. Her cloaks are cut looser. She avoids certain herbs known to harm pups. The healer attends her privately." The chalk snapped in Lysander's grip. A child. His child. The room spun. He gripped the table's edge, knuckles white. Images assaulted him, Seraphina's hand on her belly the night she discovered it, the way she had once smiled at the thought of their future. He had destroyed that future. And now she carried it alone. He wrote one word on the slate, letters deep enough to scar the surface. "Certain?" The advisor shook his head. "Not yet, only rumors, but the spy saw enough to believe." Lysander dismissed them with a sharp gesture. The door closed, leaving him alone with the maps and the ghosts. He sank into the chair, head in his hands. A pup, his pup, growing without him, raised to hate him perhaps. Or worse, never knowing him at all. Regret clawed deeper than any blade. In Silvermere, the sun broke through the clouds for the first time in days, spilling gold across the frozen lake. Seraphina walked the keep's inner garden with Era, breath misting in the cold. The healer carried a basket of winter bloom, a rare flower that eased the nausea that had plagued her mornings. "You cannot hide it much longer," Era said gently. "The pack notices everything." Seraphina stopped beside a snow-laden pine, fingers brushing the needles. "I'm not hiding, I'm protecting." "From him?" "From everything." She turned, eyes fierce. "The child will know love, safety, strength, not the chaos of a court that tore its king apart." Era set the basket down. "And when the pup asks about its father," Seraphina's throat tightened. "I'll tell the truth. That he was once a great man, that power broke him, and that I chose better for us." Era studied her. "You still feel him." Seraphina didn't deny it. The severed bond had left scar tissue, but echoes remained, faint tugs like a phantom limb. She had felt his fight in the west, the rush of adrenaline and grief. She hated that she still knew him so well. That night, sleep pulled her under despite her resistance. She dreamed of their wedding night again. The temple, the thunder of his first words, the way he had lifted her against him with reverent hunger. In the dream, His hands slid over her skin, tracing the curve of her waist, lower, cupping the swell that hadn't existed then. His mouth followed hot and worshipful, murmuring her name like a vow renewed. She arched into him, legs wrapping around his hips as he pressed her back against cool stone. The bond flared golden between them, alive and whole. He moved slow, deep. Every thrust, a promise. Mine, he growled against her throat. Forever. She shattered with a cry, clinging to him as he followed, spilling inside her with a broken groan. She woke gasping, sheets tangled, body aching with need and sorrow. Moonlight spilled across the bed. Her hand drifted to her belly, feeling the faint flutter beneath. He's not yours anymore, she whispered to the empty room, but the lie tasted bitter. The next morning a rider arrived from the south, exhausted, horse-lathered. He knelt before the Silvermere Alpha, a grizzled wolf named Torin. Message from Blackthorn, the rider said, voice rough. The king quells unrest in the west, but challengers gather, and he knows the Luna is here. Torin's eyes narrowed. He glanced at Seraphina, who had entered the hall at the commotion. She stood tall, chin lifted. What else? The rider hesitated. Rumors follow you, my lady. Of an heir. The hall went still. Torin rose slowly. Is it true? Seraphina met every gaze, proud, unafraid. Yes, I carry the former king's child. Gasps rippled. Then one by one wolves dropped to their knees, not in submission but respect. Torin spoke for them all. Then Silvermere protects its own. The pup will be born here safe. Relief and grief warred in her chest. She nodded, throat tight. That night another raven arrived at Blackthorn, this one bearing Silvermere's mark. Lysander opened the scroll with trembling hands. The message was short, written in a firm, unfamiliar script. The Luna is under our protection. The child will know peace. Do not come. No signature, none needed. Lysander crushed the parchment in his fist, a silent roar building in his chest with nowhere to go. He looked north again, snow still falling like a barrier between worlds. He had begun, but the path just grew longer. And somewhere in the dark a tiny heartbeat, unknown, unloved by its father but fiercely guarded by its mother. Chapter 3, The Cost of Secrets. Lysander crushed the parchment again, the Silvermere warning crumpling like dry leaves in his fist. Do not come. The words burned hotter than any battlefield wound. He had spilled blood for strangers in the West, rebuilt homes with his own hands, all to prove he was still worthy of the throne. But this was different. A child. His child. The possibility had haunted him since the spy's first report. Now confirmation stared back at him in black ink. The pup would know peace. Without him. He stormed to the war room maps, slamming the crumpled note onto the table. The northern border stretched before him, Silvermere marked in faded ink, a fortress hidden in valleys he had once sworn to visit with her at his side, hand in hand, dreaming of a family. He traced the route with one finger. Days of hard riding, dangerous passes choked with snow, rogue packs prowling the edges. He could be there in a week, but she had commanded him to stay away. He laughed once, a silent, bitter huff that echoed off stone walls. Commands. From the woman who had once obeyed his every glance, from the woman whose heart he had shattered. The door opened. His chief advisor, Harlan, entered cautiously. Your Majesty. The Iron Fang Challenger trains in the yard. He mocks your silence openly now. The court grows uneasy. Lysander wrote on the slate, let them mock. Harlan hesitated. There is more. The spy waits outside, he brings details. Lysander's hand tightened on the chalk. He nodded once. The spy entered, a lean wolf with frost still in his beard. He bowed low. The Luna blooms with child, my king. The swell is unmistakable now. She walks with the healer daily. The pack guards her fiercely. They say the pup kicks strong. Lysander's world narrowed to a single point. Kicks strong, alive, real. He wrote letters shaking, boy or girl. The spy shook his head. Too soon to know, but she is radiant, stronger than ever. Radiant. The word sliced deeper than any blade. He remembered her glowing after their mating, skin flushed, eyes bright with love. He had dimmed that light, and now she shone without him. He dismissed them both, slamming the door with force that rattled torches. Alone again, he sank to the floor back against the map table. For the first time since the rejection, Raw grief broke through the walls he had built. His shoulders shook with silent sobs, tears falling onto the slate where he had written her name months ago and never erased. He had lost the right to know his own child. In Silvermere, the storm arrived without warning. Black clouds rolled down from the peaks. Wind howling like wolves denied their kill. Seraphina stood in the healer's chamber. One hand braced on the windowsill as another contraction gripped her. Too early. Ira's face was calm but tight. The storm brought it on. The pup is eager. Seraphina nodded through the pain, sweat beading on her brow. I'm ready. Hours blurred. The storm raged outside, thunder cracking like the night his voice first returned. She clung to that memory even as agony tore through her. His arms around her, his growl of possession, the way he had looked at her like she was his entire world. Another contraction. She cried out, gripping Ira's hand. Breathe, child, Ira soothed. Push with the next one. She did. The world narrowed to fire and pressure in the sudden piercing cry that cut through the storm. A boy? Ira wrapped him in soft furs, placing the tiny bundle in Seraphina's trembling arms. He was perfect. Tiny fists waving, a shock of dark hair already visible, eyes squeezed shut against the light. When he opened them moments later, they were storm gray. Just like his father's. Seraphina's breath caught. Tears spilled as she pressed her lips to his forehead. Hello, my little warrior, she whispered, voice breaking. I've waited so long for you. The pup quieted at her voice, nuzzling close. For the first time since the rejection, joy, pure, untainted, flooded her chest. She smiled through the tears, laughing softly as he grasped her finger with surprising strength. Outside, the storm began to ease. Far away, Lysander jolted awake in the war room chair. He had fallen asleep, slumped over the maps, exhaustion claiming him. But now his chest ached. Not the usual hollow void, but something sharper. A pull. A cry he couldn't hear but felt in his bones. He staggered to the window. The snow had stopped. The moon hung full and bright. He pressed a hand to his heart, eyes fixed north. Something had changed. In Silvermere, Seraphina named him Kalen, victorious people. She held him close as Ira cleaned the room, whispering promises into his soft hair. You are loved beyond measure, she murmured. You are strong. You are wanted. And one day you'll meet your father, when the time is right. Kalen slept against her breast, tiny breath steady. She looked out at the clearing sky, a single tear tracing her cheek. The cost of her secrets had just been paid in blood and tears and unimaginable joy. But the hardest truths were still to come. Chapter 4. Shadows at the Border. Seraphina held Kalen close, his tiny body warm against her chest, rising and falling with the steady rhythm of new life. The storm had passed, leaving only the soft hush of snow against the windows and the crackle of the hearth. She traced one finger over his perfect features, the strong line of his brow, the dark lashes fluttering in sleep. Every detail echoed Lysander, the shape of his mouth, the stubborn set of his chin even in infancy. It hurt. Not the sharp agony of betrayal anymore, but a deeper ache, like pressing on a bruise that refused to heal. She had birthed this miracle alone, surrounded by strangers who had become family, yet the ghost of the man who should have been here lingered in every breath her son took. Ira entered quietly, carrying fresh linens. He's beautiful, she whispered, eyes soft. Strong lungs. He'll be a force. Seraphina smiled, small, genuine, the first real one in months. He already is. She shifted Kalen to her shoulder, patting his back gently. I named him Kalen, victorious, because he is my victory. Ira nodded, understanding everything unsaid. Outside, dawn painted the valley in pale gold. Lysander rode north. He had left Blackthorn in the dead of night. No banners, no escort, just him, a black stallion, and the moon pendant wrapped tight in his fist. The council would call it madness. The kingdom teetered on unrest, challengers circling like vultures. But none of it mattered. A child, his child, had been born. He had felt the moment miles away like a thread snapping taut in his soul. Not the bond, they had severed that, but something older, deeper, blood calling to blood. He pushed his horse harder, snow spraying beneath hooves. The passes were treacherous, ice-slick and narrow, but he knew them by heart from old campaigns. He rode without rest, driven by a need fiercer than pride or regret. He had to see, not to claim, not yet, just to know they were real. By dusk on the third day he reached the outer ridges overlooking Silvermere. He dismounted, tethering his horse in a copse of pines, and crept forward on foot, silent as the predator he was. The keep glowed below, warm lights spilling from windows. Smoke curled from chimneys. Wolves moved along the walls, alert, but not alarmed. He found a vantage point on a rocky outcrop, half hidden by evergreens. And there she was. Serafina stepped onto the balcony of the eastern tower, wrapped in a thick fur cloak. She held a bundle close, tiny, swaddled in white. His breath stopped. Even from this distance he saw her face, tired, radiant, transformed. She looked down at the child with a tenderness that cracked something open inside him. She smiled, brushed her lips against the babe's forehead, and whispered words the wind carried away. Lysander's knees buckled. He gripped a branch to stay upright. A son. He had a son. The boy shifted in her arms, one small fist escaping the blanket. Dark hair. Even from afar, Lysander knew. He looked just like him. Grief and wonder collided in his chest, stealing what little breath he had left. Tears blurred his vision. Hot, silent, unstoppable. He had never cried with sound, not even before the curse. Now the silence felt fitting, punishment and prayer all at once. He watched for hours. Watched her rock the boy gently when he fussed. Watched her sing softly. Though he couldn't hear the tune, he remembered her voice like a melody etched in bone. Watched the way she held him as if he were the only thing anchoring her to the world. She was magnificent, stronger than he had ever been. When night deepened and she finally went inside, Lysander stayed. The cold seeped into his bones, but he welcomed it. Pain was penance. He reached into his cloak and drew out the moon pendant, the one she had returned on the battlements all those months ago. He had carried it every day since. Now he crept closer, moving like shadow through the outer woods until he reached a sacred stone shrine at the keep's edge, an old offering place for travelers. No guards patrolled here. He knelt, pressing the pendant into a small hollow beneath the stone. Then he placed his palm over it, head bowed. A vow. Not spoken, couldn't be, but carved into his soul. I will protect you both, even if from a distance. Even if you never know. He rose, lingering one last moment, eyes fixed on the lighted window where she had stood. Then he turned and melted back into the trees. Serafina felt it again, that faint tug like a memory brushing her skin. She stood at the nursery window, Kalen asleep in his cradle. The valley lay quiet under fresh snow. Something had watched them tonight. Not danger, not threat, something sorrowful, aching. She pressed a hand to the glass, scanning the darkness. Nothing, but her heart raced anyway, equal parts fear and longing she refused to name. She turned back to her son, brushing a finger over his cheek. One day, she whispered, voice trembling with emotion she rarely allowed. You'll know how fiercely you are loved. By me. And maybe by him too. Outside, the wind carried a lone wolf's howl, distant, mournful, unanswered. Lysander rode south under the stars. The image of mother and child burned into his mind. He had seen them, and it changed everything. Chapter 5. Blood and Bonds. Years slipped by like snow melting into spring rivers. Kalen grew wild and bright in Silvermere's hidden valleys, raven hair tousled by mountain wind, storm-gray eyes that caught every detail with unnerving sharpness. He ran faster than the older pups, climbed higher, laughed louder. The pack adored him. The moon-blessed sun, fierce and kind in equal measure. And every time Serafina looked at him, her heart twisted. He was Lysander made small. Same stubborn tilt of the chin when determined, same quiet intensity when listening, same protective streak that flared whenever another child was hurt. The resemblance grew sharper with each passing season, a living reminder she could never escape. Yet he brought her joy she had never known possible. His first word was Mama, spoken with a grin that lit the entire keep. His first shift at 5, a tiny black wolf pup tumbling in fresh snow, drew cheers from the whole pack. Serafina would watch him play for hours, chasing butterflies or wrestling with friends, and feel her soul stitch itself back together one giggle at a time. She smiled again, truly smiled. On quiet nights when the fire crackled low and Kalen curled against her side, he would ask the question that never grew old. When will I meet my father, Mama? She always answered the same, brushing his hair back with gentle fingers. Soon, my love, when you're ready, when the time is right. She told him stories, not the full truth, not yet, but enough. Your father was a great king once, brave, strong. He'd lost his way for a while. but he is finding it again. One day you'll stand before him, and he will see what a wonder you are. Kaelin would nod solemnly, gray eyes wide with dreams of a father he had never met. Seraphina never spoke of the ache those promises cost her. Far south, Lysander waged his own quiet war. The kingdom had stabilized, challengers defeated, borders secured, rogues scattered. He ruled with actions now, riding out personally to settle disputes, rebuilding villages with his own hands, listening in silence to every grievance brought before the throne. His voice remained locked away, the curse unyielding, but he no longer raged against it. He had earned nothing yet. He watched from afar. Reports from careful spies, never intrusive. Drawings of a dark-haired boy with his eyes. Tales of a pup who defended smaller children, who asked questions that silenced elders, who carried himself with a king's bearing without knowing it. Each scrap of news was both gift and torment. He kept the moon pendant on a chain around his neck now, hidden beneath his tunic, a secret reminder against his heart. The ancient evil stirred slowly, whispers at first. Villages on the northern edges reporting shadows that moved wrong. Wolves vanishing on full moon hunts. An old darkness tied to his grandfather's sin, the one that had birthed the curse to begin with. Lysander felt it like frost in his blood. It was moving north. Toward them, one crisp autumn day, Silvermere hosted a border gathering, nearby packs coming together for trade and alliance. Seraphina attended with Kaelin, now 7, tall for his age and brimming with excitement. She stood on the edge of the clearing, watching him play with other pups, laughing as they chased each other through fallen leaves. Then she felt it. That tug again, stronger now, unmistakable. Her gaze swept the tree line. He was there. Lysander stood half-concealed by pines, cloaked in black, eyes fixed on the boy. On their son, the world narrowed to a single point. He had aged, lines etched deeper around his eyes, face leaner from years of discipline and regret. But the way he stood, the way he watched Kaelin with raw wonder and pain, was the same man who had once looked at her like she hung the moon. Their eyes met across the distance. Time collapsed. Everything they had been, fated mates, lovers, betrayer and betrayed, flared between them like lightning frozen mid-strike. Her breath caught. His hand moved unconsciously to the pendant beneath his shirt. Kaelin's laughter rang out as he won some game, arms raised in victory. Lysander's gaze shifted to the boy, and Seraphina saw it, the moment he truly understood what he had lost. His shoulders sagged, just slightly, a silent plea written in every line of his body. She should turn away. She should shield Kaelin and leave. But she stood frozen, heart pounding with emotions too tangled to name. Anger still, yes, but beneath it, sorrow for the man he might have been. Pride in the son they had made. And something softer, more dangerous. Recognition. He took one step forward. She shook her head, barely a movement but enough. He stopped. Then Kaelin looked up, curious, following her gaze. "Who's that man, Mama?" he asked, voice carrying in the quiet. Seraphina's throat closed. Lysander met the boy's eyes, gray on gray, and for one heartbeat the world held its breath. Kaelin tilted his head, studying the stranger with unnerving intensity. Lysander's lips parted as if to speak, but no sound came. Instead, he placed a fist over his heart and bowed, deep, formal, reverent. To his son. Kaelin's eyes widened. Seraphina felt tears threaten. She placed a hand on Kaelin's shoulder. A friend, she managed, an old friend. Lysander straightened slowly, eyes never leaving the boy. Then, with visible effort, he stepped back into the shadows and vanished, but not before Seraphina saw the glint of moisture on his cheek. That night, Kaelin was quieter than usual. "Mama," he said as she tucked him in. "That man. He looked at me like I was important." Seraphina's heart cracked anew. "You are important, my love, to many people." Kaelin considered this, then nodded. "When I meet my father, will he look at me like that?" She kissed his forehead, voice thick. "Yes, Kaelin, when the time comes, he will." Outside, the wind carried the first hint of winter, and far away Lysander rode south again, faster this time, urgency burning in his veins. The darkness was coming. He would not let it touch them. Not his son. Not her. Even if he had to face hell itself, silent, broken, but finally truly willing. Chapter 6. The Ancient Trial. Lysander rode south through the night, the image of Kaelin, his son, burned into his mind like a brand. Gray eyes meeting gray, that curious tilt of the head, The boy's small fist raised in victory so much like his own had been at that age. He had bowed to his child without a word, heart shattering and rebuilding in the same breath. And Seraphina, standing guard over him, fierce and beautiful, her refusal a silent wall he finally understood he had built himself. He pushed his horse harder, the wind whipping tears from his eyes that no one would ever see. The darkness was coming. He felt it in the marrow of his bones, the old curse stirring, shadows lengthening at the edges of the kingdom. It had waited, patient as winter, for his bloodline to weaken. He would not let it reach them. In Silvermere, the days grew shorter, the air sharper with coming frost. Kaelin asked more questions now. Not just when, but why. Why does my father stay away, Mama? Did he not want me? Seraphina's heart fractured anew each time. She knelt to his level, cupping his small face, Lysander's face in miniature, and answered with all the honesty he could bear. Your father wanted you very much, Kaelin, but he made mistakes, big ones. He hurt people who loved him. He's trying to fix them now. That takes time. Kaelin's brow furrowed, so serious it stole her breath. Will he ever be fixed? She smiled through the ache, brushing his hair back. That's up to him, my love, but you are perfect exactly as you are. She taught him strength in other ways. How to track in the snow, how to listen to the wind, how to stand tall when others whispered. The pack loved him, but whispers followed anyway. Fatherless heir, half-royal mystery. One afternoon in the training yard, Kaelin sparred with older pups. He held his own, quick and clever, until one boy, bigger, meaner, shoved him down. Your father's a coward, the boy sneered. Ran away and left you. The others laughed. Kaelin's face went white, then red. He scrambled up, fists clenched, but said nothing, just stared with those storm-gray eyes, until the bigger boy looked away. He ran to Seraphina afterward, burying his face in her cloak. They said he didn't want me, he whispered, voice breaking. Seraphina held him tight, rocking him as she had when he was small. Her own tears threatened, but she kept her voice steady. They're wrong, Kaelin. He wanted you. He still does. One day you'll know the full story, and when you do, you'll decide for yourself what kind of man he is. Kaelin pulled back, eyes fierce through tears. I want to ask him myself. She nodded, slowly, heart heavy. Soon, I promise. That night she stood on the balcony long after Kaelin slept, staring south. The tug in her chest had grown stronger since the gathering, faint echoes of regret, of determination. She hated that she still felt him, hated that part of her, wondered if he truly had changed. Far away, Lysander entered the forbidden ruins alone, the ancient trial site, crumbling stone arches swallowed by vines, air thick with old magic. The goddess had shown him the path in a dream, a chamber deep beneath the earth where his grandfather had spilled sacred blood. To break the curse further, he had to face it. He descended, torch in hand, the pendant warm against his chest. The chamber was vast, walls carved with scenes of betrayal and redemption. At the center stood an altar stained dark. A voice, not sound but presence, filled the space. Face what you became. Shadows rose. Illusions of the women he had used, their eyes accusing. Omegas. Betas. Faces he had forgotten in his arrogance. One by one they spoke his crimes. You took what was not yours. You broke what was sacred. You silenced yourself long before the curse. Lysander fell to his knees, chest heaving. He bowed his head, accepting every word. No defense, no pride. Hours passed, or days, time lost meaning. He clawed through trials of fire and ice, reliving every betrayal in vivid agony. When he reached for power, thorns tore his hands. When he reached for forgiveness, the shadows recoiled. Finally, broken and bleeding, he placed the moon pendant on the altar. I was wrong, he rasped, soundless but the intent carved into his soul. I do not deserve them, but I will protect them, with everything I am. Light flared, not blinding, gentle. A single word formed in the air, not heard but felt. One. Then a sound, rough, painful, tore from his throat. Sip. His voice fractured, barely a whisper. But there. He gasped, hand flying to his neck. Tears streamed down his face. Seraphina, he croaked, the name raw and reverent. The ruins trembled. The trial was not complete, but the first crack had opened. He emerged at dawn, voice hoarse and limited but real. And in Silvermere, Kaelin woke from a nightmare, crying for a father he had never met. Seraphina held him close, whispering promises into his hair. Soon, my brave boy, soon. Outside, the shadows gathered closer. The trial had begun, but the hardest test was still coming. Chapter 7. Fractured Alliances. The playground incident clung to Kaelin like frost that refused to melt. He no longer ran ahead with the same reckless joy. Instead, he walked beside Seraphina, small hand tight in hers, gray eyes scanning the other pups as if expecting another blow. The bigger boy's words echoed in his silence. Coward, didn't want you. Serafina felt every ounce of his hurt as though it were her own. That evening, after the keep quieted and the fires burned low, she led him to her private solar. A single candle flickered on the table, casting warm light over a small wooden box she had kept locked for years. Kaelin watched her curiously as she opened it. Inside lay a folded cloth. She unwrapped it carefully, revealing a miniature portrait, painted on fine vellum, no larger than her palm. A man in black ceremonial robes, raven hair falling wild, storm-gray eyes staring out with the intensity of a gathering tempest. Lysander, younger, prouder, the king she had first loved. Kaelin's breath caught. He reached out, hesitant, tracing the painted face with one finger. Is that— Yes, Serafina said softly, sitting beside him. That's your father, King Lysander Voss of Blackthorn. Kaelin stared, wide-eyed, drinking in every detail, the strong jaw, the faint scar over one brow. He looks like me. Serafina's throat tightened. You look like him, and he would see it too if he stood before you. Kaelin's lip trembled. Why isn't he here, Mama? Did he really not want me? The question broke her. She pulled him into her lap, wrapping her arms around his small frame as tears finally spilled, hers and his. No, my brave boy, she whispered fiercely. He wanted you, but he hurt me, hurt us, very badly. He chose pride and power over love. I left to protect you from that pain, to give you a home filled only with light. Kaelin buried his face in her shoulder, sobs shaking him. They said he's a coward. Your father is many things, she said, voice thick with old sorrow and new resolve. But never a coward. He fights battles no one sees. He carries regrets heavier than mountains. One day he will stand before you, and you will decide for yourself what kind of man he has become. Kaelin pulled back, tears streaking his cheeks, but his eyes burned with something fierce and bright. I want to see him, he declared. I want to ask him myself, face to face, in front of everyone, so he can't hide. Serafina's heart stuttered, pride and fear colliding. Her son, so small, already carrying a king's courage. She cupped his face. Are you sure? He nodded, chin lifting in that stubborn way that was purely Lysander. I'm not afraid. I'll go to him. I'll make him see us. Serafina pressed her forehead to his, tears mingling with his. Then we will go together, she promised. When spring thaws the passes, you will stand before the king, and he will know what he lost, and what he might still earn. Southward, Lysander's voice grew stronger with each dawn. The trial had cracked the curse open, one painful word at a time. He practiced in solitude, forcing sound from a throat long silenced. Simple things first. Water, fire, protect. And always, Serafina, Kaelin, names he had no right to speak yet spoke anyway, like prayer, like penance. Reports came from the north. The boy had been hurt by cruel words. The Luna comforted him. They spoke of the king often now. Lysander read each message with trembling hands, guilt a living weight on his chest. He had caused this pain, from afar, unknowingly, but undeniably. He doubled his efforts, trained harder, listened longer, ruled with a fairness that silenced critics. The kingdom began to heal around him, sensing the shift in their silent king. But the darkness grew bolder. Shadow wolves sighted on northern borders. Villages whispering of nightmares that walked. The ancient evil, tied to his bloodline's original sin, sensed weakness, sensed the scattered family. It hungered. One night, as frost laced the windows, a rider arrived from Silvermere. Not a spy this time, an official envoy. Lysander met him in the throne room, heart pounding. The envoy bowed low. From the Luna of Silvermere, your majesty. She comes in spring, with her son, for the great assembly. Lysander's world tilted. He managed a single hoarse word, his first spoken in public in years. When? The envoy's eyes widened at the sound, rough but real. With the first thaw, the boy wishes to meet his father openly, before all Pax. Lysander closed his eyes, emotion crashing over him like a wave. The boy, his son, was coming to him. Not in secret, not in shadow, in light. He nodded once, dismissing the envoy with gratitude he could not yet voice. Alone on the throne, he bowed his head, tears falling silently onto stone. Forgiveness was not his to demand, but for the first time it was his to earn. and he would face his son, face her, with everything he had rebuilt from the ashes. Spring could not come soon enough. Chapter 8. The Price of Protection. Spring arrived like a long-held breath finally released. The passes thawed, rivers swelled with meltwater, and the great assembly drew wolves from every corner of the realm to Blackthorn's vast central plain. Tents bloomed in a riot of pack colors, fires dotted the night, and the air thrummed with anticipation and old grudges. Lysander stood on the palace steps each dawn, watching the horizon for the Silvermere banners. His voice had strengthened, still rough, still limited, but enough for short sentences now. He used it sparingly, letting actions carry the weight. The kingdom had changed under his silent rule. Fairer laws, rebuilt villages, challengers met and defeated with honor rather than cruelty. But nothing mattered more than this day. Word came at midday. Silvermere had arrived. He walked to the assembly field alone. No guards, no crown. Just black leathers and the moon pendant openly displayed on his chest for the first time in years. The crowd parted as he moved through them. Whispers followed. The king speaks again. He waits for the northern Luna. The boy looks just like him. Lysander's heart pounded harder than any battle drum. Then he saw them. Seraphina rode at the head of her delegation, tall and regal on a white mare, auburn hair braided with silver threads that caught the sun. She wore deep green, the color of forest and renewal, and her expression was calm steel. At her side on a sturdy pony rode Kaelin, 8 years old now, straight-backed, raven hair windswept, gray eyes scanning everything with quiet intensity. Lysander stopped breathing. The boy was unmistakable, his own face staring back from childhood. Seraphina dismounted first, helping Kaelin down. The crowd fell silent as mother and son walked forward together, every eye on them. Kaelin's hand tightened in hers, but he did not falter. They stopped 10 paces from Lysander. For a long moment no one spoke. Father and son stared. Gray on gray, recognition dawning like sunrise. Kaelin's chin lifted, just the way Lysander remembered doing at that age. "I am Kaelin of Silvermere," the boy announced. Voice clear and steady despite the tremor only Seraphina could feel in his hand. "Son of Seraphina Vale, and your son." A collective inhale rippled through the assembly. Lysander's knees buckled. He dropped to them right there in the dust, heedless of the thousands watching, tears already streaming down his face. Kaelin took one hesitant step forward. Lysander looked up, eyes red, voice cracking on the first words he had spoken publicly in almost a decade. "My son," he rasped, the sound rough but unbreakable. "I see you." Kaelin's composure cracked, his lip trembled. "I came to meet you," he said, voice smaller now. "Mama said you were finding your way back. Are you here now?" Lysander bowed his head, shoulders shaking with silent sobs that needed no sound. "I am," he whispered. "I never left you, not in my heart. I was lost. I hurt your mother. I hurt you before you were even born. I have no right to ask." He looked up again, meeting Seraphina's eyes over Kaelin's head. She stood frozen, her own tears glistening, face a storm of emotions, pain, pride, sorrow, and something softer she could not yet name. "But I beg," Lysander continued, voice breaking. "Forgive me, both of you. I will spend every day left to me earning the honor of being your father, of being worthy of the woman who gave me this miracle." Kaelin glanced back at Seraphina. She nodded once, tears slipping free. The boy turned and ran the last steps. He threw his arms around Lysander's neck. Lysander crushed him close, sobbing openly now, one hand cradling the back of his son's head as if he were the most fragile, precious thing in the world. "I'm sorry," he choked into Kaelin's hair. "I'm so sorry." Kaelin clung tighter. "You're here now," he whispered. "That's what Mama said would matter." Seraphina watched them, father and son entwined, tears mingling, and felt her heart fracture and mend in the same breath. The assembly erupted in cheers, wolves howling approval, but the three of them heard nothing. Lysander looked up at her over Kaelin's shoulder, eyes pleading. Seraphina stepped forward slowly until she stood before him. He did not rise, remained on his knees holding their son. "I don't know what this means for us," she said quietly, voice steady despite the tears. "But for him, we try." Lysander nodded, unable to speak. Kaelin pulled back slightly, looking between them with a watery grin. "Does this mean I have 2 homes now?" Seraphina laughed through her tears, a real broken open sound of joy. "Yes, my love, 2 homes." Lysander reached out one trembling hand toward her. She hesitated, then placed hers in it. The contact sent a jolt through them both, Old echoes of the bond, new sparks of possibility. In that moment, under the spring sun with thousands witnessing, a family began to heal. But in the shadows beyond the plain, the ancient darkness watched. It had waited generations. It would not wait much longer. Chapter 9, Dawn of the Air. The assembly field still echoed with cheers when Lysander rose slowly from his knees, Kaelin's small hand clasped firmly in his larger one. Seraphina stood beside them, her fingers still entwined with Lysander's other hand, a fragile bridge built on their son's courage. The three of them formed a quiet circle amid the roaring crowd, a family in the making, raw and imperfect. Lysander looked at Kaelin first, tears drying on his cheeks, voice rough but steady. "I will never leave you again," he said, each word deliberate, earned. "Not by choice, not by weakness, you are my son, my heir, my heart outside my body." Kaelin's face broke into a grin, wide, trusting, luminous. He threw his arms around Lysander's waist again. "I knew you'd be tall," he mumbled into his father's tunic, drawing a choked laugh from Lysander and soft smiles from those close enough to hear. Then Lysander turned to Seraphina. He released Kaelin gently and faced her fully, still on one knee now. Not submission to the crowd, but to her. "I have no words grand enough," he rasped, voice cracking with emotion. "I broke us. I broke you. I do not ask for your heart again today. I ask only for the chance to earn back your trust. One day, one act, one truth at a time, for him. And if the goddess is merciful, for us." Seraphina's breath trembled. Years of pain, anger, and guarded healing warred behind her eyes. She looked down at their joined hands, then at Kaelin, watching them with hope that pierced her like sunlight through storm clouds. "I forgave enough to bring him here," she said quietly, voice steady despite the tears spilling freely now. "Forgiveness for you, that is a longer road. But for our son, I will walk beside you. We will learn together what family means now." Lysander bowed his head, pressing his forehead to their clasped hands in silent gratitude. Kaelin tugged both their sleeves. "Does this mean we stay for the feast?" Seraphina laughed, wet, genuine, healing. "Yes, my love, we stay." The assembly erupted again, wolves howling in celebration. Packs that had once whispered of weakness now roared approval for the king who had knelt, the Luna who had returned stronger, and the boy who had bridged them. That night the great hall blazed with light and music. Lysander, Seraphina, and Kaelin sat at the high table, together. Wow, can you feel that? The tears, the hope, the roar that shook the palace. Lysander finally whole, a family reunited, and the promise of a future built on hard-won forgiveness. But the darkness is coming, and when it strikes, will their fragile new bond hold, or will everything they've fought for shatter again? If this story has you crying, smiling, and screaming at your screen, don't let it end here. Smash that follow button right now. You do not want to miss what happens next. Drop a comment and tell me. Are you Team Seraphina all the way? Queen deserves peace forever? Or do you believe Lysander has truly earned this second chance? What do you think the final battle will cost them? Will they all make it through? Like if this reunion broke and healed your heart at the same time. Share this series with your pack. The ones who live for werewolf redemption arcs, strong lunas, and epic family feels. Save it so you can come back and feel all the emotions again. Your comments fuel the next episodes. Tell me what you need to see. More father-son moments? Seraphina and Lysander slowly rebuilding. The ultimate showdown with the ancient evil? I'm writing the finale because of you. Let me hear your voice in the comments, loud and clear. Who's ready for the epic ending? The next episode drops soon, and it's going to wreck you in the best way. See you there, don't miss it.